Hey guys, welcome to another edition of my Sherlock reviews. Today, I'm joined by my good friend Geek in Review, and we'll be looking at Sherlock Season 4, Episode 1, entitled The Six Thatchers. So, Geek, I really didn't believe that we would ever get here because it really seems like we've been talking about Sherlock forever now, but we are actually at the beginning of the end. So, with that in mind, just before we start talking about the first episode of this season, how do you feel? Because we've been talking about Sherlock for a while now.
Yeah, I was thinking about that earlier on today because when I messaged you asking which episode we were on and I looked at the synopsis for this episode, I was like, I do not remember anything. And then literally 10 seconds in, everything came flooding back. I'm glad we're nearing the end. And I think the writers were glad they were nearing the end in terms of the writing as well for this show, but we'll get to that in a minute, I suppose.
To be honest, although I did see Sherlock on Netflix, a while ago, for some reason, I think I stopped at season 3 and I didn't see the final season of Sherlock. So this will be the first time that I'm really experiencing Sherlock's final bow or his final run. And this episode really it started off as it usually starts off with Sherlock with Sherlock being presented with a grander purpose, but then stuff happens to reveal something else. I thought it was fine, but I think I have a major problem with the way that Sherlock is structured. I just wish that they would present him with a case and he would just run through that case straight. Like it seems like they are obsessed with presenting a problem and then presenting a bunch of mini problems that Sherlock has to deal with, and then dealing with the main case, but then giving us a twist at the end. I don't particularly like that type of storytelling, but with that being said, it was really cool to see Sherlock, mouth off to the British authority, and one scene that I liked very very much is when he's talking to the British government and he's basically tweeting on his phone, and Mycroft has a fit and starts struggling with him for his phone. I found that to be very very awesome. I was like, this is great. And I also like the fact that this episode really does a great job of fleshing out the character of Mary in ways that I wasn't
Mhm.
expecting. What happened with her, I was like, wow, I didn't see that coming. I was really surprised with that, and I really liked it. I really enjoyed it. I didn't like what they did with John, that little subplot that they gave him. I thought that was kind of pandering a little bit, but for the most part, I thought this episode was a good start to the final season.
Yeah, I think there is only two because I'm sure the last episode is close to 2 hours. But no, I agree with you because when I was writing my notes for this episode, I think I sort of summed it up perfectly for me, which is on paper, this is great. It's got great Sherlock Watson stuff. It's got great Sherlock Mary Watson stuff. It's got great Sherlock Mycroft stuff. It's got fights. It's got reveals. It's got twists. It's got, when he texts people, it shows up on the screen, on the window or the glass of where he is. But it just feels a little bit to me like they tried to fit too much into this episode.
It did feel a little bit overstuffed, but I think that's a general problem with a lot of Sherlock episodes. They feel like they have to stuff everything in one into one big bag instead of like giving us small things in this episode and small things in the other episode, and then giving us the whole thing at the very last episode of the season. They've really never done that.
Yeah, look, this, I think because both of the actors were at not the peak of their career, but they were both worldwide famous at this point through
Mhm.
this and Marvel films. So I think it was just trying to get as much as they could out of the story and the characters and the actors to try and tie it all up. Because let's say, like, it's got everything in it. It's got Lestrade. It's got everything that you would want from a Sherlock episode, but it just, I don't know, it just feels like it doesn't work. It's like maybe if you gave someone a recipe for something and they got one thing wrong and they put in like too many onions in the lasagna or something like that.
All the ingredients are here for a great Sherlock episode. You got all the right ingredients, but it's almost like it feels like they didn't cook it quite right.
Yeah.
The one thing that I really enjoyed was the exploration of Mary's past. Like, I like look. I'm a I'm a bit. I'm not the biggest Sherlock Holmes fan, but I really like Sherlock as a character, and I've never seen Mary explored like this in any Sherlock media, what have you. So I'm really glad that Mark Gatiss and Stephen Moffat really chose to give the character of Mary a really interesting and intriguing backstory, because I've never seen that done before.
Yeah, I mean, you're right about that. I've not seen every Sherlock Holmes adaptation or read every book, but I know it's mostly, excuse me, Irene Adler that tends to be the more interesting character, so I can see why they maybe decided to switch it up. But I don't know, there's just something about the three of them together, and sometimes it works for me, and sometimes it doesn't. Like, I think it might have been good if at one point, not even in this episode, just someone Mary showed up, if there was like a scene where it was all three of them talking and it just turned into like a small bicker and argument between Watson and Mary, and Sherlock just has to like sit there like the kid in the back of the car is watching his parents fight and can't do anything, but he's always coming back to them.
In what way do you appreciate the dynamic of Watson, Mary, and Sherlock? Do you like it when they're bickering with one another?
Sort of, because they come across to me more as, I know they're a married couple, as siblings, the three of them.
Oh,
Or
okay.
if you imagine like John and Mary are maybe siblings and Sherlock's like the cousin that comes out of town, that kind of weird vibe that they all get along, but it might not be, they don't get along all the time.
Oh, okay. I didn't I did not see that angle. I've always seen their dynamic as, Mary and John being married, and Sherlock being like the family sibling that neither of them want to deal with, but they love in the back of their
Mm.
heads,
Yeah, it's a
so
good way of looking at it as well.
now you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong, but at the start of this episode, they did a previously on segment. And in that previously on segment, Mycroft says something. And he kind of insinuates that that Moriarty is related to them in some fashion. Are they trying to tell us something? But if they were trying to do that, why would they put it in the previously on segment? Why would they try and slip it into the episode I am unless I am, taking too much in from just a previously on segment?
I don't know. I didn't get a previously on segment because I watched it on iPlayer here in the UK, so it just went straight to it. So I didn't see it.
Yeah. It just went straight to it.
Yeah.
Oh wow, that's so odd.
Or it might have been a previously on segment and I just blanked it out because I usually do that. So I could be lying and I'm just not aware that I'm lying.
Okay. Okay. No, but the other thing that I don't like is that they keep dangling the Moriarty threat over our heads. And
Mm,
this episode for the most part was about learning more about Mary, discovering that she was a part of a black bag group that basically was a gun for hire, and that basically a member of her group, a member of the special forces army that she was a part of, after them going into a situation, them being ambushed, where she thought everybody in her group was dead, one individual from her group comes back and tries to kill her. Um, with so yeah. With that being said, this episode focuses primarily around Mary and John, but the thing that I don't like is that they keep bringing up Moriarty, and I'm like, why are you going to do that? If you're going to do a story about Mary,
yeah, I thought that as well. And again, I think it might have been down to the fact that it's now costing us too much money to pay these guys. So maybe they
okay,
just kept Moriarty, kept the sort of flame alive in case they did want to make more shows.
okay, Okay. But do you think that he's going to come back, or do you think that this is all cannon fodder? This is just to distract us.
Without ruining anything that's going to come forward,
Okay.
I can't really discuss that.
We will just leave it there. But what did you think of the story that Mark Gatiss and Stephen Moffat made for Mary in this episode? That she was a member of a member of a special team that got betrayed, and a member of her own team comes back to hold her accountable for what he thought was a traitorous act by Mary.
It was good to get the Mary stuff, and I liked it because I'm not a big fan of the actress that plays Mary, but I don't mind her in Sherlock. But the whole soldier seeking a revenge for a mission that went wrong, it's, Stephen Moffat can do better than that.
We all know that he can do better than that. Unless the magic of Stephen Moffat. I mean, he's a great writer. He's a great writer nonetheless. But unless the magic that is him is tied to one little franchise about this madman in a box, which
Mm-hmm.
I don't. Well, it might be like that because I think that Stephen Moffat is at his best when he's doing Doctor Who stories.
100% agree with you.
The overall reveal of this episode that it was the woman that was in the room when Sherlock was being questioned by the high members of government, and the whole reason this woman did whatever the hell she did. I was like, really? This is the woman behind everything? I'm like, guys.
Yeah, again, it just feels like they were trying to squeeze as much into everything as they could, story, performances, what was going on with the characters, because there's only one episode to go, and when you think about it, they shouldn't focus that heavily on. I mean, obviously they've done what they've done with the character, but I don't think they really should have focused that heavily on Mary this late in the game. This was like a story for the season before.
If we do have one episode to go, I think the reason why they did this episode was to pull John and Sherlock apart from one another.
Mm-hmm.
And I think going into the final episode, I think as an audience, we're supposed to wonder how the fuck are these two men gonna fix themselves, if they're gonna fix themselves, and what situation is gonna pull them back together for one final time.
Oh yeah, I mean, it ended on a sort of emotional cliffhanger for their friendship, but
yeah,
if they were going to make one more episode of 10, Holmes and Watson were going to get back together, it just doesn't really work.
Right. The other thing that I thought was kind of stupid and flimsy and really didn't land for me is this John striking up this relationship or this affair with a woman that he met randomly on a bus. I'm like, that doesn't need to be there. Why do that? Because I believe they did that because they sort of want to make John feel bad after Mary dies. Spoiler alert. But yeah, I was like, why do that?
I can't talk about that because it might come up in the next episode.
You want to highlight anything?
I'm just trying to think what I can say. Yeah, with that scene, I remember the first time I watched that when it was on TV originally, and thinking, well, they're going to, make Watson a bad boy kind of thing, and it'll be Sherlock that'll be the one that morally rights him. So obviously that's not how it panned out, but I'll just say, just keep that scene in mind. Just keep that scene in mind.
Okay, and keep that person in mind then. Okay. Interesting.
I can't really say anything else. But.
Yeah. Very, very interesting. Like I said, I really, really enjoy this episode for the most part. I do think that some things in the story didn't work, and it was overstuffed, and it was clunky. But I really like what they did with Mary, and I really like the way that she went out, supposedly. If she really is dead, I have no idea. Yeah, I thought that this episode was a really good start for the final season of Sherlock. So, what are your final thoughts on this first episode?
Yeah, again, it had all the elements that I liked. It just wasn't put together in a very enjoyable way for me. at times it felt like it was just, there was just bang, bang, bang. They were knocking stuff out, either to connect to the next dot or because it was just like, oh, well, this is the second last episode, so we may as well just throw this in. That's how it felt to me, but that's just me.
We'll have to see what happens moving forward, but I guess we will certainly do that. So before we go, if the good folks want to find you on the social medias, Geek, what would be the best place for them to do that?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at the Geeks Reviews, and that's all the one word. Or if you just type in Geek in Review in YouTube search, you'll find me no problem at all. So give me a like and a subscribe.
All right, guys, and if you want to find me, the best place to do that is also on Twitter. I'm at Creek Fanatic88. But thank you so much for listening to this conversation. And as I often say, I'll see you when I see you.
So much happened here, and so much is about to.